immediately felt like, okay, this is going to be something cool. This is going to be something that I want to work on. It's not going to be one of those projects that I'm just going to bin. What is up, guys? Redoxx here, and today I'm going to show you how I made my track Nafsi in Logic Pro. So let's dive right in. So Nafsi is an Afro House track that got released on Inward Records. It's part of my EP Cursed. So I'm excited to give you guys a step-by-step guide, insight on how I made this track. I will try to take it in the same order that I took it when I was making the actual track. So this is the project, and if you guys saw my last masterclass on Wanyana, then you remember that I said I really love to use color coding, so you'll see a lot of colors going on. It satisfies me, it makes everything much clearer. I like to work that way. You work however you like to work. At the end of the day, all that matters is what comes out of the speakers. I truly believe that. Walking you guys through how I made the track, I usually start with the kick, bass, and percussions, and this is exactly what happened in this track. So I'm gonna go on to this second section over here, because this first section is the intro, and as you can see, it's kind of empty. Intros usually tend to be pretty empty, but that's not how I started the project. I actually started the project with this section over here. So let's see what we have. I'm gonna make a little loop so it's easier. So we have a classic kick. This is the bass line. I will first play the bass line without the kick, and then I will introduce the kick in it, and you will see why I felt like the two really complement each other in this specific project. Once I had the kick and the bass and they were sounding well together, I immediately felt like, okay, this is going to be something cool. This is going to be something that I want to work on. It's not going to be one of those projects that I'm just going to bin. Anyways, what's going on this kick and on the bass? Nothing much. On the kick, we have a channel EQ. Basically, the reason why you see these two humps is because on one side, I really wanted to push the bass frequencies, and I felt that this is where they were hitting primarily. And I also wanted to push the high frequencies on this other side to give that kick a little bit of that little slap that you hear that kick should have. In Italian, we call it la punta, the point of the kick. And if you have a kick that just doesn't have that emphasis on the high frequency, then you end up with a very muddy kick, which might be your preference. And there's a lot of producers out there that layer two different kicks. They choose one kick for the bass frequency and one kick for the high frequency. But in general, a kick needs to have both of those things. Whether you get it from the same kick or if you layer them, that's your choice. But yeah, that's what you see going on here with the channel EQ. So kick and bass sound well together, and that's a great starting point. And after that, I immediately went into the percussion section. I always do that. While not all of my tracks are necessarily Afro House tracks, I don't even like to box myself in as an Afro House music producer. I genuinely almost always use ethnic percussions. They just speak to me and I just really like them. So kick, bass, we have our shakers over here. Let's listen to the shakers solo and then we'll layer them out. So this is one layer of shakers. Also on the shakers, we have a bit of compression. Now, this is one of my favorite tools, one of my favorite plugins to use. It's called Decapitator. It's from Sound Toys, and it's just so good. You can put this on almost anything and it will probably sound good, which don't abuse it, but it's really good. I really enjoy using Decapitator. So you will find Decapitator on a lot of elements in this track. So that's one shaker. Then we have a second shaker over here, I believe. Play them together. Then we have another percussion over here. I call this percussion. It's not necessarily a percussion. It's more of an ambient feel, industrial, atmospheric, whatever you want to call it. But I felt the need to incorporate this, especially in this section of the track. In the intro and in the outro, it gives you more of a drive. It sounds like a train that is just like, I don't know, starting to move or whatever, but it worked. So that's all we needed. Then let's layer it with the kick and the bass so we get a little bit more of a feel of what's going on. Very groovy. And now I'll introduce the snare. Now that's in place. We have a few more elements going on over here. We have these, I call them slaps. If I solo them out, you can hear that's pretty much all they do. Again, decapitator over here, a must, almost always. There's a bit of a channel EQ. Actually, there's a heavy channel EQ over here. I basically canceled out all of the mid and especially low frequencies. And the reason why I do that is because we have a heavy bass line, we have a kick going on. We want to leave that frequency spectrum as free as possible for the bass line and for the bass frequencies of the kick. What else do we have here? We have this texture stamp. Subtle, but you can definitely hear it. And for the rest, so we had kick, snare, bass line, texture stabs, these slaps, then we have other slaps, which I'm not sure if they're actually slaps. Maybe I just call them that way. Let's hear what they do. They're definitely not slaps. I call them that way. It's a percussion element. But the reason why these are so important, and we'll see that also later on with other parts of the track, is because they are all fitting in the, what I like to call response formula. This happens with melodies, this happens with percussions, rhythmic elements, whatever. In music, the formula that usually works and keeps the listener engaged is a call response. So in this case, the call response is happening between these two slaps, okay? So if we solo them, this would be the call response. We have other two percussions over here. Just this hit with probably, I put a lot of reverb on it. Yeah, I can hear that. Here it is. There's two great reverbs. I like the stock reverb from Logic, the Space Designer, but I also really like the Ultra reverb, which is also a really, really good reverb. You should go and check that out. And this is, again, the whole call response mechanism. We have the same thing going on with these hits. So we have the call hit and the response hit. Now layer them together and you'll see what I mean. Self-explanatory. And if we put everything all together, then we already have the main part of the track is already done, basically. So I'll actually just do it like this. We have a couple of more elements coming in here. We have some hats. We'll get to those later. But this is what it sounds like. And now in the second section of the intro, second section of the second intro, because there's this first section over there, the hats are introduced. And they really, really, really give a lot. I'm gonna mute this vocal for now because it's confusing, but we'll get to that later. So this is before the hats, and then hats are introduced. This is the core of the track. The way I work is I build a core and then I build a soul. And then I try to put them together. It's very hippie, romanticized concept, but it's actually pretty easy to grasp. The core, rhythmic elements, kick, bass, percussions, all of that, it sounds good, I'm grooving, nice, beautiful. And now we need to find the soul. If we're able to put the soul together with the core, then we have a track. That's my formula. When we speak of soul, in this track specifically, which is pretty different from other tracks, because I think this is probably one of the only tracks where the soul is not necessarily a melodic element, is this specific, how did I call it over here, lead percussions. There we go. The soul of Nafsi. Now, I started working on this percussion, this rhythmic percussion loop, chopping up a few things, putting them back together. And when I got to this result specifically, it was very, very clear to me that this was the track. This little loop, this was the track, 100%. And the rest of making the track was actually pretty easy with that in mind. I remember I started this track when I came back from Ibiza, and I just remember working on this section and picturing Ibiza, the club. I remember I went to see Black Coffee, and it just really, really gave me that vibe. I was like, I can really see this intro being played at high, and I can see it working. Over here, this was my test vocal, and it really started growing on me, and I loved it so much. It became my end game vocal, and I just stuck with it, and it was really, really cool. So as you see here, it's pretty chopped up. I worked on it a bit just because it was a little bit off tempo. I wanted it to hit in the right moments of the track, but yeah, there's not that much to it. This is the vocal, and when I put it on top of the project, it immediately just started working. So now transitioning from the intro into the first drop, we have this. This really gave a lot to the track. It puts it in a room. The same way a reverb would put a percussion in a room, this ambiance, this atmospheric pad puts the track in a room, in a very cool room, in my opinion, and it just really, really worked. So this is the only element that I introduced in this break that then becomes the build, basically, the build up to our first drop. This is the only new element that I introduced. Now, what I did keep were these slaps, and these slaps, and this shaker, and these percussions over here. Now, this element is new, but if you paid attention, it's not really new. It's actually part of the lead, what we call the soul of the track, which is this lead percussion, which is this one. And then this part is what I made my drop out of. Okay, so now this is a part of this, of our lead, of our soul, of our main part of the track. Now at this point, you're expecting something. Not only you're expecting it, but you're ready for it, because I took so many elements out that you felt like you really needed, that now you need them more than ever. That is the whole point behind this move. Now what happens in the drop, surprisingly, it's a lot of similar elements. And actually that's not surprising at all, because that's how it usually is. When you have all the rhythmic elements that are working together, then you basically consider them as one block, and then you decide to copy, paste, cut, edit, take out, introduce in a way that they create a flow. This is how the drop sounds. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of the build or break, however you want to call it, to give you a feel of how it sounds when it hits. So that's the drop. That's the first drop. And even though we're technically almost exactly halfway through the project right now, I'm pretty sure that if you now look at how much time is left in this video, we're not going to be halfway through. We're almost going to be at the end. And the reason is that once I've built this part, the second part of the track, it almost builds itself. And it builds itself with a lot of the same elements that we used before. So, second break that then genuinely turns into a build over here. And what happens here, this is how the second break sounds like, but it's very similar to before. We basically empty everything out. We have the vocals going on, and we have the pad. Now, probably favorite part of the track. This build, where as you can see, there is nothing except for this part over here. Everything else is emptied. This is just a effect, okay, and it dies out. It's literally just an impact sweep, a cashmere impact sweep to be precise, which I'm sure I'm going to receive a lot of hate for. Everyone says, oh, everyone uses cashmere, don't use cashmere, whatever. Everyone uses cashmere for a reason, and the hits and the effect part of the tracks, the cashmere ones sound pretty nice, and I dare you to listen to all of those other tracks that use the cashmere effects and be able to hear it and be like, oh, I don't like this track because it has a little that is from the cashmere sample pack. So yeah, that's my stance on it. No anger. Okay, so what about this build? This was so fun. So basically, this main loop over here that I chopped up, I then chopped up even further over here, and the whole point behind it was for this percussion to get into your head, and then in the second part, not only the percussion, I don't only want the percussion to get into your head, but I want a specific little part of the percussion to get into your head, which is then the main part of the drop, which you've already heard before. So the second you hear that part and you hear that part repeating, it creates a lot of, I don't know, excitement, because you know that that happened before, you know it's gonna happen again, and yeah, very powerful in my opinion. I'll play it out for you guys. Basically same drop like before, but it hits harder. It hits harder because that build creates this moment, this atmosphere. So it hits so much harder than the first drop. And then the second thing that changes, which was a lot of fun, is basically having these elements. I'll play it out first. That's better. So these things that I called slaps, which are really not slaps, I feel like if I had to give them a name, they would be cowbells probably. You hear them throughout the whole track. You hear them even here in the intro. But it's literally just one little hit, right? And that's it. But if you play around with that hit, you can create something much cooler, which then translates into this. Cool little percussion going on. Now, I would introduce these in the drop, but they would only hit basically 4 times throughout the drop. You can see it here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Also here, same thing. Now I doubled them up over here and even created a little pattern where there's like 3 right next to each other, which honestly create this hypnotic feel of just almost confusion. It's all around you and it's overwhelming, and that was exactly what I was aiming for. So I'll give you guys a bit of a taste of that. And that's the second drop. So this is how we transition out of the second drop and into the outro. And then that's how we get to our outro. And the outro is only the kicks, bass line keeps on going up until almost the end where we empty it up completely. We have a little bit of these vocal hits that still hit 4 more times just to not take everything away immediately and keep the almost echoey feel of the vocal in the track. Like it's still there, but it's getting further and further to get you used to the fact that there's not going to be a vocal anymore and that we're going to be transitioning into an outro, which usually helps. And that's it. I'll play this last part out for you guys, but that's basically the end. Yeah. And then there's this last part. And that's it. That's how I made Nafsi. If you guys like the track, definitely go check it out. Spotify, Beatport, whatever. And if you like this video, I'm happy to make a masterclass with the other tracks as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, listen to the tracks. That's the most important thing. If you don't want to like, if you don't want to subscribe, if you don't want to comment, listen to the track on Spotify. That genuinely makes me the happiest. But if you want to do all of those things, then I'll be even happier. See you guys in the next one. Ciao.